Hello, and thank you for joining me. This is Larisa with the United Natural Products Alliance. I wanted to provide you with a quick summary of the new Dietary Supplement Compliance Program Guide. This document was issued in November of 2020, and I wanted to share with our members just some of the updates regarding a compliance guide, give you a little bit of the executive summary, what's important to understand about a compliance guide, and what the changes are that are important to you and your staff. This video is designed to be an executive overview and try to do that for you quickly. And then for any of your operations and supervisory staff in the production area or anyone that's managing a contract manufacturer, I'm going to have a longer video that will be provided to you as a separate link. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen so that we can walk through some slides together. Okay, first off, this is a member-only training. It is the FDA Dietary Supplement Compliance Program. This is the terminology typically used by FDA investigators. There's a more formal name that we'll get into in a moment. This was originally prepared immediately after the release, and we are trying to get this out to you as soon as possible. So first, we're going to cover the executive summary. As I mentioned, what is a compliance program guidance manual, which is either referred to by the investigators as a compliance program or a CP. I'm going to tell you why it's important to you, the major changes that were made in the September 2020 version of the compliance program guide for dietary supplements. So again, this is going to be a 15-minute overview. I'm going to try to give you what you need to know in that short period, and then there will be a deeper dive in, for anyone that's working in regulatory operations or your quality staff. That'll be provided to you in a separate video. What we'll cover in both videos is what you need to know regarding the new compliance guide, that it was prepared and how to be prepared when the FDA returns. What is the old compliance guide details that you need to maybe hold on to, and how to be prepared again when the FDA returns. So a compliance program guide is a document utilized by the FDA. I've provided a link here on the slide, and hopefully when you have access to these slides, that would be an active link. But what you'll notice on the FDA website is this quotation here that a compliance program guide is really what the FDA investigators utilize during the course of an inspection. This is the document that guides them throughout the course of the inspection. So the quotation here says that FDA compliance programs provide instructions to the FDA personnel for conducting activities to evaluate industry compliance with the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act and other laws administered by the FDA. A compliance program, programs are made available to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. Compliance programs do not create or confer any rights for or on any person, and they do not operate to bind the FDA or the public. So these are not legally binding documents, but again, it's what the FDA investigators are utilizing during the course of the inspection. Now, this is, once you follow the link into the FDA website, you'll see there are many different compliance program guides. So I encourage you to look through the multitude of compliance programs available, because some of them might be useful for your organization. The one on the top here is the most useful for us today and for the purposes of this training, but the full name of the document is Dietary Supplement, Foreign and Domestic Inspections, Sampling and Imports. And then the implementation date, again, there is the 9/30. So why is it important to you? Well, compliance program guides, as I described, is basically guiding the FDA investigator on how to cover the inspection while they're within an organization, within a facility. So the FDA investigator is required to follow the compliance program guide during the inspection and when writing their report. So when they're writing a report, it's called an establishment inspection report. And if they do not cover elements of the compliance program guide, typically what they're going to have from their supervisor is it'll be sent back to them. And they'll have typically you'll hear some negative feedback from the supervisors in your reviews based on lack of coverage within the compliance program guide. So here's the document. Again, the full title is shown here at the top and also in the document itself. But you will notice that the implementation date for the most recent compliance program guide is 9/30 of 2020. What's surprising about this is that I didn't see any announcements. I haven't seen any industry media coverage, and I certainly haven't seen any others that are conducting training on the compliance program guide. So I wanted to make sure that our members are trained and ready. So there have been at least 3 versions of the compliance program for dietary supplements, and I've been utilizing them for most of my career in the FDA and since leaving the agency. The difference will be noted on each of these compliance program guides by their implementation date. And again, that's kind of shown in that upper right-hand corner. But there are 3 different versions. The original compliance program, again, it's usually abbreviated by CP, was 3/26 of 2010. This compliance program guide was really active from about 2010 when we began conducting inspections in dietary supplement facilities. As at that time I was an FDA investigator, and it remained the same version of that document until I left at the end of the fiscal year in 2016. Now, the second version, what I call the old compliance program guide, the implementation date shown in that document says on receipt. And that changed somewhere about, I believe it was November of 2019. And when I noticed that it had changed was really I looked to find the document because I was used to printing it each time I used it, because there was some suggestion in the title on the original document that said pen and ink changes. And therefore I used to print it every time I needed it or every time I provided it as a reference to one of our members or someone in the industry. So the document disappeared from its link. I contacted the Office of Dietary Supplement Programs. I let them know that the link was broken. And when I received the new link, it was the new document that said upon receipt. Now, at the end of the year 2020, I was again looking for the document to provide it to a member and to help them with preparations for an inspection. And I found that the compliance program guide had changed, and the date now is 9/30 of 2020 as the implementation date. So what's important about a compliance program guide? Again, the FDA investigators are using these to conduct the inspection. So the better you understand the compliance program guide, the better you will be prepared for your own inspection. So within the document, you'll find many sections. I've shown them here on the slide with the background, implementation, the inspectional pages, analytical pages, regulatory administrative strategy, and then there's some attachments. What I've put here in the large bold font is the inspectional section. This is what is most important to the FDA investigator, and it should probably be most important to you as you prepare for an inspection. Within the implementation section, you'll find the objectives of the FDA, and there are 5 shown here, but I wanted to just expand the beginning that says the goal of the compliance program is to ensure that the establishment consistently manufactures dietary supplements of acceptable quality and minimizes consumer exposure to adulterated and/or misbranded dietary supplements. Now, remember when we talk about dietary supplement quality, quality is defined by in 21 CFR Part 111.1, which is our dietary supplement GMPs, and quality, the quotation is here on the slide, but quality means that a dietary supplement consistently meets the established specifications for identity, purity, strength, composition, limits for potential contaminants, and it's been manufactured, packaged, labeled, and held under conditions to prevent adulteration. This is really the gist of our GMPs. I just wanted to point that out. Quality parameters are very important. So if we look in the compliance program guide, we'll see on page 7 that the priorities for inspection are listed as 1, the company is responsible for a class 1 or a class 2 recall since their previous inspection. These are all the reasons that you would be the first to experience an audit from the FDA. Number 2 in the priorities of inspection would be if the previous inspection was classified as official action indicated, meaning that you had serious violations of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act or the Good Manufacturing Practices, requiring FDA follow-up to encourage regulatory compliance. Third is if you have no known FDA history. So if you've never received an inspection from the FDA, you would be listed in that priority number 3 to receive an inspection. Number 4 would be if you're known to manufacture a high-risk dietary supplement. This one is going to be really important to all of you that are listening, because most of our companies in the membership probably are going to fall into the high-risk category, and I'm going to show you that in the next slide. Number 5, if you've been implicated in a public health emergency, this means if you have been responsible or affected by a recall, outbreak, or an emergency. Now, when we talk about high-risk dietary supplements, the number 1 risk that might place you into a high risk means that you're manufacturing botanical dietary supplements. And I know that's going to be pretty surprising to most of you that are watching, and it was certainly surprising to me. But when you look through the compliance program guide, there are a couple quotations that stuck out to me, and I wanted to share them with you. The first one states that the reason their botanical supplements are high risk are, 1, they may contain contaminants such as toxic elements or microbial contamination. And another quotation that I pulled from this states that they may present challenges for identity and for strength testing. So we're going to summarize that in the next slides. These are areas you should probably be looking at when you're talking about updating or modernizing your quality programs, making sure you have all of these covered. The second area of considered high-risk dietary supplements is anything containing bovine ingredients. So think about BSE risk ingredients. And I've seen these when I was an investigator, typically related to products containing bovine eyes, spinal cords, brain. You might also see other bovine-derived ingredients, but again, that's looking at BSE risks or mad cow disease. Risk number 3 would be potential new dietary ingredients. And a quote I pulled specifically states that without safety assessment, that could pose a public health risk. Now, we received some insider information at the beginning of 2020, and it looked like NDIs were going to be a higher priority for the agency. Due to COVID and the pandemic, it didn't get much traction in 2020, but I want to make sure that all of our members understand that this is something to consider, any new dietary ingredients that you might be utilizing in your product line. And the fourth area of high-risk dietary supplement companies would be any manufacturers that manufacture multiple dosage forms. And specifically mentioned in the compliance program guide is powders, liquids, gummies, or soft gels. They're going to be looking at companies that have multiple dosage forms. So the action steps for you to consider if you're in that high-risk botanical area is really evaluate your quality systems, update and modernize your botanical programs if necessary, and to include contaminants such as toxic elements. And these are quotes that I pulled directly out of those previous slides. This might include pesticides, heavy metals, pharmaceutical adulterants in any of those red flag products like male performance products, whether it's bedroom products or sports supplements. Is it weight loss products, joint health products, anything that might have a known pharmaceutical adulteration history or any other known adulterants within the industry. You also want to make sure that you have your identity testing, which is being done using scientifically valid methods and appropriate methods, and then strength testing. Those two, you might have to rely on one of our members who can help you with some analytical testing. And then the final area is NDI for safety assessments. So when we're talking about the implementation objectives, one of the first objective was that the FDA will be using FSMA inspectional frequencies and enforcement follow-up timeframes. They're going to be collecting and analyzing domestic and import samples for compliance with the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. They'll be enforcing dietary supplement regulations, including the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act and Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, to verify any corrections from previous inspection. And number 4, they're going to be collecting information on labeling for compliance with applicable requirements. So labeling has taken a higher priority in this compliance program than it has in other previous editions. And number 5, they're going to be compiling information to modify or develop enforcement strategies. One of the areas that I found most interesting in this compliance program guide is that there's 4 inspectional approaches that have been addressed. And there will be a full scope manufacturing inspection. And in the longer video, I'll go into detail of what is covered within each of these. Number 2, limited focus manufacturing inspection. Number 4, a distributor inspection. So if you are a brand owner or utilizing contract manufacturing services. Number 3, a distributor inspection would apply to you. And then warehouse inspection. This might also apply to anyone that's utilizing contract services and has a warehouse facility of their own, or if they are utilizing a fulfillment center. We'll cover that in more details in the next video as well. Attach number C is new to the new compliance program guide. And what I found most interesting and surprising is that attachment C is a list of ingredients for concern for coverage during the inspection. So for an FDA investigator, they'll be looking at these attachments to determine what coverage will, what ingredients will be covered during the course of the inspection. Specifically, they'll be looking at new dietary ingredients that require notification. And the FDA has included a list here of known materials that may require an NDI notification. Now, in the previous edition of the compliance program guide, there was a section called Attachment E. These were botanicals to be considered if they were in the product line. This was a one-page document that basically described botanicals known to have a higher incidence of contamination, complaints, or adulteration, substitution, dilutions, etc. So if we go back to attachment C in the new compliance program guide, it includes 3 different areas to consider. One of them is that new dietary ingredients that require notification. And it also states that have never been submitted. There are 6 of those that are itemized. Number 2 is unsafe food additives, and there are 5 ingredients listed there. And the 3rd area listed in attachment C is ingredients that do not meet the definition of a dietary ingredient. And currently there are 2, but if you've been watching the warning letters over the course of the last year, you'll note that many materials, including hemp and hemp derivatives, have been receiving statements in their warning letters related to not meeting the definition of a dietary ingredient. Here are the 5 that have been listed for not having new dietary ingredient notifications. Several of these were also listed on attachment E of the old compliance program guide, meaning it was areas that the FDA investigator would spend time. And with that, that's kind of our brief overview of the compliance program guide. I wanted to provide you just some major changes in the compliance program to describe to you what it is, why it's important to you, and then the changes for the new program. So if you have the time, I would appreciate it if you could share this information with your operations staff. We're going to have a longer video available to operations teams, including anyone in the manufacturing areas, anyone that's conducting audits of your contract manufacturers, or if you are a contract manufacturer, it'll have a little bit more details on how you can implement the new compliance program guide. So if you have any additional questions, please reach out to me or any of our members on the UNPA team. I'm Larisa with United Natural Products Alliance. I thank you for listening, and I thank you for your membership. And we'll be back to you very soon.